My family's of Indian origin, but I'm fourth generation Zimbabwean. This is how that happened. My great-grandfather was very, very poor in India, and in search of a better life, borrowed enough money from everyone in his village, went to a dock with just the clothes on his back and bought a ticket to go anywhere he could afford. He couldn't afford tickets to be with the humans, so bought a cargo ticket. So he was in the stowage with the animals. Spent 3 months on the boat, ended up in Beira in Mozambique. In the boat, met other people in a similar situation, and they heard what is Zimbabwe now used to be Southern Rhodesia, and that Southern Rhodesia was a great place to go. So they then trekked for 3 months from Beira up to Kwekwe, which is the third biggest city in Zimbabwe. It would have been incredibly difficult. They didn't speak the language. They only spoke Gujarati, which is the language in India from where they came. Arriving in Zimbabwe was an apartheid state, which was tiered. So white Zimbabweans had a lot of privileges and could go anywhere. There were certain areas only Indians could go, and below that only blacks, because blacks had the least privileges or rights. My great-grandfather was a cobbler. He used to fix people's shoes. He started mending people's shoes and then saved up enough money to set up a small shoe repair shop. My grandfather took over from my great-grandfather, built the shoe repair shop into a bigger business, and then built a department store, and the department stores made him a lot of money. And then he bought hotels, mines, farms, very diversified. My grandfather was also a philanthropist because he'd made so much money. He wanted to help, and he felt the racial inequality in Rhodesia didn't sit well with him. So for instance, his hotels, even though he owned them, he wasn't allowed through the front entrance because they were in the wealthy areas, which were whites only. So even though he owned it, he had to go through the service entrance in the back because he wasn't white. So he decided to fund the liberation struggle. So there were two factions, ZANU and ZAPU. He funded ZAPU, gave them money, housed them in our hotels and properties, and basically helped fund this war that overthrew white rule and turned Southern Rhodesia into an independent country, which became Zimbabwe. He also was involved in the Lancaster House Agreement talks to liberate Zimbabwe in the UK. And then when my grandfather died, my dad is one of 5. Him and his siblings inherited a whole lot of businesses. My dad, from his part of the inheritance, because a lot went missing, my grandfather's will went missing. So most of the inheritance didn't end up with the family because they couldn't find the title deeds. My dad's generation didn't know what my grandfather owned, mainly because my dad and his siblings all studied and lived abroad. So because my grandfather was funding the liberation struggle, he was funding the black in the war, and if my dad and his siblings went to war, they would have to fight for the whites. So we'd be fighting against the rebels my grandfather was funding. My grandfather sent my dad and his siblings to the UK, and my dad spent time between the UK, Switzerland, America for over 10 years while the war was happening. Came back to Zimbabwe, and when they inherited everything, they got a small fraction of what my grandfather had. My dad inherited a small shoe factory. He built it into becoming the largest independent shoe manufacturer in the country. And then with the economic downturn in 2000, it's practically impossible to run a business. So my dad's shoe factory and businesses went under, and he then had to start again completely from scratch in 2000. I was 14 or 15 at the time. It was really tough because having grown up with so much wealth, there's this worry because will there still be a roof over our head? A lot of people my dad owed money to, trying to keep the business afloat. So it was really tough. It molded me and my values a lot. We were very lucky in that we managed to stay in the same home, which was very nice, and still have staff. Our lifestyle didn't change drastically, but we didn't have the fancy cars anymore that we used to have and go on these extravagant holidays for a long time. But what you realize is a lot of the friends or family friends we had sort of disappeared when the money was gone. We used to host a lot, throw very big dinners every week at our house or lunches. My mom and dad managed to do whatever they could to still give us the best education. My sister still went to finishing school in Switzerland. And to the best universities in the UK and the States. I went to a very good university in the UK. I still lived a good life, but knew that there would be nothing for me to inherit or to take over. And since the age of 23, I haven't taken a cent from my family, and everything I have, I've built from scratch with zero funding or investment to what I have now. During the hard times, security became a really big worry for me. I couldn't sleep at night. I would always worry, what if someone takes our home or something? A big insecurity I had was financial security. This is why I'm very careful with money. If I buy something, I always buy cash. I will never borrow money. And I'm always very careful. I will not spend money unless I know that me making that purchase or whatever it is or whatever the extravagance is, it will have no effect on my lifestyle or the money I have. And I'm also very careful. If I buy a car, it's generally a good investment and going to appreciate, or it opens doors that will help me make more money, and don't feel I'm at a point financially yet where I can be frivolous and make purchases that aren't sensible. Very confident I will be at that stage one day where money won't matter. I love cars, but I'll buy cars that I know will get me access to certain clubs where the network helps me build my businesses further. So now I'm at a stage where network, I don't need to meet people. I have access to virtually anyone I want. The last car I bought, I'm already being offered more than $1 million more than I paid for it. So very sensible with my money. Even though I left the country as a teenager to study, I moved back to make enough money with the intention of moving to the UK. Once I did, or felt I was in a position I could, and my business was generating enough money, I moved to the UK. But I've always come back very regularly because parents and extended family are still here, who I love dearly and want to see, but also I love Zimbabwe as a country. It afforded us what I believe was the best childhood. Growing up in the 90s, I really think Zimbabwe was the best place in the world to live. You know, it's safe. We lived in big palatial homes with a lot of staff. Children could really be children. I mean, we had the most fun childhood. There were great restaurants, great clubs when I was an early teenager. My parents had a good social life. It was a really, really great place to grow up and live at any age. Around the year 2000, Mugabe, the president at the time, made a ruling that Black Zimbabweans could take white-owned farms. When that happened, there was a mass exodus of people because people in other industries felt if they're non-black and the farms are getting taken, next their shops, their factories, all that will be taken. A lot of people with wealth moved, which led to a huge economic downturn. And there was a long period, more than 10 years, where the economy came to grinding halt. This is when my dad's factory went under. Industry stopped, agriculture was really bad. We had hyperinflation, it was really, really bad. With the regime change, with the current president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, we've seen a huge improvement. More investments come back into the country. There's a lot of confidence. The economy is on an upward curve. The country is getting better and better, and I see so much development. There was no infrastructure development. So the infrastructure was great from the Rhodesian times and just degraded and degraded and degraded. But now with the regime change, there's so much more development in infrastructure. I see the country getting better and better. I genuinely believe Zimbabwe as a country will be the next place the super rich move to, because with the worry of wars in other countries, a lot of parents don't want their children being exposed to a lot of what is they're being exposed to at schools and being taught, and what they get exposed to on social media. A country like Zimbabwe allows you to bring up your children in a completely cocooned environment. Children can be children. They go out in fields and play. They've got great weather. They're outdoors all the time. Schools have really strict discipline. Like the school I went to, since I was young, was very disciplined. And you're taught good manners and respect. For instance, at my high school, if I walked past an adult, I had to lift my hat and say, "Morning, ma'am," or "Morning, sir." Or if I walked past a lady carrying a basket and didn't offer to carry it, if you get put on manual labor for 3 consecutive weeks, you get caned. Now, corporal punishment is now banned, so that the caning part doesn't happen. But you still have that discipline, which I think children need and should have. At the same time, sports are compulsory, so kids are outdoors a lot, running on fields, in the grass, horse riding or playing polo or golf or go-karting tracks if they want to start go-karting, or race tracks. Children have a freedom to explore whatever hobbies they want, archery, and you have good coaches, lots of open land. So I think it affords children a better childhood than you can have in most places.
If you've enjoyed this video, stay tuned and subscribe. There's plenty more ahead.